Hi guys, welcome back to JargOff. I think this is episode 3 now. I'm joined today by David Winter in his Mint studio, so obviously it looks a lot better than the shots usually do. David, do you want to introduce yourself to the camera?
Absolutely. My name's David Winter. I run Affinity Media. We predominantly work with clients to produce videos, mostly NHS, public sector work, and then we also have our own brands, our own YouTube channels, which we kind of are in the process of the 10-20 year journey of building. You can't quite see it, but there's a drum kit here, so we have a drum channel, and then in the other room, which Craig's already been on, we have our sim racing rig for all our motorsport channel as well. So we're trying to do a budget Top Gear and monetize that and make something of it. So that's what we do.
Quite an exciting business model compared to most people, I think. I think ambitious is a good word for it, but in a good way. Like, I think it's nice to hear that your plan, like, it's not incohesive. You know, you're ambitious, but all of them come together based on your core skill of video production. So
lack of focus is another it's another word for it.
I know all about that. Don't worry about that. So for the first question, can you explain what your business does, but not in the traditional way of my business does this, this, and this? Can you try and explain it from a point of view of how it solves someone's needs or challenges?
Absolutely. So in terms of the client side, predominantly NHS and public sector work, public health information and kind of staff internal training. Their biggest problem is red tape, guidance, all the kind of best practices and things that you need to do. Where we kind of come into that, one, we've been working with them for a long while now, so we kind of know all of those things more or less offhand. But it's really difficult for them to get clear, kind of concise information across in a reliable way, in a way that's I wouldn't say enjoyable, but easy enough for somebody to watch, especially if, for example, they were worried about a certain health condition. They want to make sure they're getting the right information, understanding that information. And I think that can be quite difficult to do. We see a lot of trusts that will maybe firsthand still try to record something like a selfie video on their phone, or even if they go to the extent of little Osmo cameras or something like that. There's still a lot more involved than just the camera that you're using. How you actually get that across, the script writing, the cutaways and B-roll and all that sort of stuff. So we kind of work with them there to make sure the actual video that they do get in the end, one, obviously they're happy with it, but is actually going to be effective and understandable, and if you go as far as saying enjoyable, for somebody, i.e. the public, that's actually going to be watching that.
Yeah, I think you mean, like, well, sorry, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but what I often glean from when I speak to you, David, is that, like, it's about creating, like, a tangible story and not just shooting a video. Like, I know that sounds probably like a basic way to say something, but if everyone, it's like with copywriting or content marketing, everyone can probably write a little bit and everyone can probably, like, maybe film a little video, like you say. Yep. But I don't think everyone understands the sort of purpose behind it, the storytelling and conveying messages through it.
Definitely, yeah.
Do you think that, like, as more and more people, I mean, obviously we're of a similar age, we grew up in a generation where, like, video production used to be super elite and gated behind really, really expensive things, and now, like you say, people can shoot, like, decent footage on fairly cheap cameras and smartphones and stuff. Do you think that's impacted how clients perceive videography as a service, or?
I think so, yeah. I think I remember a good discussion on LinkedIn, which is not always the best place to go for your all your discussions, but kind of talking about copywriting or video production, things like that. Actually, just when you mentioned about being devalued, I think one of the main, this is not everybody, but business owners can sometimes look and go, well, if I had the time, I could do that.
Yeah.
And if I had the time, I could make that video, or I could do, it can sometimes be a little bit dismissed because everybody can have a go at it, and, like, rightly so. It is then that the quality side is one thing in terms of video production, the actual production value that is so often unseen. So yeah, I think there's a little element of being devalued because everyone now thinks also they can have a go, and I do think that that's a good thing, that everyone has a bit of an understanding. I think because everybody can have a go. One of the challenges that then comes from that is there's so much content online, so much information that's on the internet, videos and other forms of content, that then actually the difficult part is being really effective with what you're saying and actually being able to stand out, and that's its whole own discussion, I think.
Yeah, no, I get you. And I realise I kind of threw that in as like a random bonus question as well. Okay, so for my sort of second question, I just want to talk, obviously the theme of this podcast is like trying to get rid of jargon in business and making it more clear to users and customers what you do. So in that vein, with videography, are there any sort of like common terms or like buzzwords that you hear that you feel like are misleading or confusing and you want to clear those up?
Okay, so one of the first ones, which is actually a bit of a running joke with videographers or people in video, is that like everything's a pan and shot. So everybody think, can you just get a pan and shot of that? Why don't you get a pan and shot of that? It's not quite a pan and shot what you mean, but yes, I know what you're asking for. I think loads of people now can, and rightly so, and it's a good thing, can all record a video. They can jump on their mobile phone, they can buy a relatively cheap camera, and that mobile phone or that relatively cheap camera will actually shoot a higher video quality or as good a video quality as a cinema camera would 10 years ago that nobody could afford for like £250,000. And that's a really, really good thing. So you've got two elements. One is video quality, which we now don't have that issue because when you're filming even on an iPhone, it films in 4K, 60 frames, super, super high quality. The other question then comes into video production and kind of production value. So you might then start talking about lighting setups, what the background looks like. You might start talking about kind of actual script and storyboarding if you're thinking about shots and voiceovers. You might start thinking about as well just the actual final edit in terms of subtitles, all the really like No, my set is falling apart. That's not meant to have happened.
And here I was bigging you up for having a quality studio.
And it just falls apart. Cheap plastic, that's no good. Oh dear. You must have clapped too loud, that's what it was.
We'll leave that in. Yeah,
we'll leave that in. So, on the subject of really high production quality and production value, that's funny. You might talk about the actual shots, the overlays, the storyboards. You might talk about how that final video actually looks like. So in terms of the subtitles on screen, really minute details. And that for me now is the bigger kind of conversation, or that's what we're talking about more with clients on shoots, is the actual production value rather than video or production quality, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely makes sense. I mean, anecdotally, I was just talking to you before about this, and I'm sure at some point on this channel I'll try and do things that aren't just sitting here interviewing people, but making like more video stuff. And I think I understand exactly what you mean, because this camera, like you say, shoots very high quality footage, but I don't really know what I'm doing with it that well. It's fine for this, but I think it's like the planning and like even storyboarding. Like I almost want to JargOff storyboard, because it's, although most people innately understand what that term kind of means, I don't know if you understand the value of what storyboarding really brings to them. Would you just elaborate on storyboarding a little bit, and like the prep you bring to a client? If they say, for example, I'm an NHS person and I want a video about a new safety thing that's happening on this ward to explain to people why it needs to happen. Yeah. Like when you come in, what do you say to them about like the importance of how you're going to storyboard that out? And
so truthfully, we don't actually do a massive amount of storyboarding, only because a lot of the projects that we do is more or less reactive to, you're turning up on a ward. It's very difficult to storyboard and go, we're going to get this shot, this shot, this shot. If you've got patients that obviously you can't get in, certain staff members, there'll always be information around the place that you can't film. So it's really difficult unless you're going to do a site visit beforehand. And a lot of the time I actually recommend, look, we're able to work that out on the day, as long as we've got a shot list, so kind of really specific things that we know we need to capture, specific questions for an interview, and that sort of does its own job as a storyboard, because we have a good idea with examples how that comes together in the edit. Other projects, and they're the more sort of really high value or high production projects, we will not do that without a storyboard, because what we've had in the past, and even still do sometimes have with a storyboard, is we'll do all the filming, we'll do all the editing, we'll bring that all together, and it just naturally someone will watch the video and go, oh, we didn't mention this, or we forgot to mention this point, or did we get a shot of this? And we're looking at it going, there's all of our shot lists ticked off. That if it wasn't on the list, we haven't got it. So then we're really, really kind of like stringent on that, saying, look, make sure everybody who is going to look at this video within the trust or NHS has seen this storyboard. Everybody's contributed all of their ideas initially. Not all of them might count, but everyone's contributed what they need to say. And then that storyboard, which we'll try and either mock up before, or we'll maybe use screenshots from examples or other video examples. We then know exactly what this video is going to look like before we filmed it, never mind actually editing it. And then it gives people a chance to right the wrongs before you've made any mistakes.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of a really good way to almost like contractualize the creative process a little bit, isn't it?
Absolutely, as well. Yeah, we can then, and we've been stung on some projects, and I say stung as in a negative term, but just meaning again, someone's naturally said, "I'm really sorry, I've just noticed that we haven't included this." It is that kind of confidence isn't the right word, but you don't feel bad for turning around and saying, well, you never told us that, because we've sat and had that conversation, and there'll always be stuff that somebody forgets, and I've noticed it even more so now, doing more of our own content, getting an edit back from a videographer, from Ben, who works here, and then me saying, Ben, I'm really sorry, but I forgot to include this. He's like, and I'm straight away, I'm like, and now I know how easily it is done. So that's the importance of either a shot list. If you're not going to go to the extent of fully storyboarding something where you're thinking frame by frame, shot by shot, or scene by scene, a quick list of questions, key points for a voiceover or an interview, and then a shot list, and then as long as you know the rest will come together in the edit, you're all right.
Okay. Sadly, I've got another question for you, just because I'm picking your brain on it now while we're here.
Go for it.
Whether this makes a video or not, I think it's still worth asking. When we talk about shot lists, like a prescribed series of shots that you need to tell whatever story you're going to tell, how does that work with like the client? Do you go to them and say like, what is it you're trying to say, and then you come up with the shot list, or is it like, do they say, I want this, this, and this? Like, how does that typically work?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. So if we've, for example, got a project where, so we're doing one at the minute, it's actually just been signed off, the final video. So talking about safe sleeping, so newborns and infants, how to actually have them not go to bed, but put them to bed safely. We had for that the voiceover, so the script that was going to go, and then from that script we're writing alongside that, for every word or every sentence or every point made, what do you want to be shown on screen there? So if they're talking about the way that you have to make sure the baby's tucked in, or the temperature of the room, we're thinking, right, temperature of the room, do we want to show a shot of a thermometer there, or what is, and that literally was the shot that we ended up using. What is it that we're matching up with what's being said? Because the worst thing when you come to an edit is an afterthought. So you've not got the footage. Not that you're just going to have a black screen and just nothing's on there, but the worst thing is an afterthought of just trying to put some text on screen, which is, we see it get resorted to loads of times. And then that's less than ideal. One, because it sort of brings the value of the video down, the quality, subjective quality of the video down, but also that person watching that, it sort of, you've had this really nice smooth video, for example, everything kind of matches up, and then there's this one sort of standout thing where just some words have been thrown on screen because something's not been thought about. That's the last thing you want. So an afterthought, which happens naturally and pretty much expected in every project, that is the nightmare, dare I say, for video editors.
I was about to move on to the third question, and then in between cuts I've realised I've forgotten something, so I've went back to ask David again about certain sort of common phrases or misunderstood things about video editing that he wants to talk about. So yeah, feel free to fire that one away with the final part of that.
Fair enough. So I think one of the, I don't want to use the word problems, but maybe it's challenges that we start to see now, is you have a lot of social media apps that, TikTok, even Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts now, they all have their own version of a little editing kind of tool within that. Obviously CapCut's a very popular way now that people are making a lot of content. This is not me complaining or ranting, but I think one of the challenges that does bring, particularly in maybe in our sector, is almost that Dunning-Kruger effect of people have done like 10 minutes of editing. So now, they now think that they have a really good in-depth understanding of what editing is. And I've been doing it for 10 years and I still don't. So there's a little element of that where then the communication barrier, almost better if they had no idea whatsoever, is kind of a little bit easier to explain. Rather than kind of, oh, well, on CapCut, when I do it this way or I do it that way. And we're producing, that is two totally different styles of videos or content that we're producing there. Between CapCut and us. Not that the editing software matters, but I'm sure you get what I mean. A phone handheld little video that can be edited on a platform like that. That's it. It's not a rant. It's not a complaint. But I think that's one of the things that's sometimes causing a little bit of friction. Maybe the right word. But I think as well that comes down more so to us, the experts on quotes, making sure that we're explaining things from the start as well, and that we're doing a better job to maybe get across, whether it even is a marketing message element of it as well, to say, you're coming to us for absolute top tier premium video production, and it's, not CapCut.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Not a complaint, not a rant, but just something that's cropping up we see a little bit more often now.
But I think it's something I probably am going to cycle you back to for the last question as well, because it's like what I said earlier, like people that have a little bit of knowledge about things, it's the same with copywriting, like they think they know what they're doing, and it's hard as a service provider. Like, I don't want to say it, they don't know what they're doing, because often they do as well. Like, often people, like you say, can make serviceable little videos. They could write a little blog. Like, but there's a big difference between that and then the services we provide, and the whole skill. And one of the reasons I make this series really is to try and show people why you need what we do. Like, you're not really targeting the people who are making little CapCut social media videos. Yeah. That's a totally different, like you say, like that is enough to, I would be worried if my whole, if 10 years ago my whole job had just been making little social media reels for people, because now kind of it's a lot easier for people to do that, isn't it? Like
now it actually is. You literally have full-time like content creators. At one point they would have been called a video editor, but the barrier to entry is now so much lower that we talked about this the other day in the office, but you can now be called a content creator, and the threshold for that is just, do you have CapCut on your phone? Yeah. Do you have a free app on your phone? Yes. All right. Okay. You can be a content creator. And again, there's nothing wrong with that in a sense. Well, there is nothing wrong with it in any sense. But I guess it's like, you're still creating a video if you were doing that on CapCut and whatever, and if you weren't bothered about the quality, and then coming to us for a video, or going to any a big agency for a video, you're still creating a video. It's like, every day I go drive my car, but I'm not Lewis Hamilton driving a Formula 1 car at 200 miles an hour. We're still doing the same thing of driving a car, but the opposite ends of the spectrum are like completely different.
Yeah, and I think what the important point there to try and drive home though, because you always worry that saying it like that, and I do the same thing with my services, you always worry that saying it like that almost like makes it sound a little bit elitist. Not that I'm saying that's what you sound like, but that's always the worry.
I agree. That's the difficulty in explaining that.
But it's not about elitism. It's about like the output for a client. The client doesn't come to you for that like low level content creation, social media, video stuff. That could be like an offshoot of some of the footage you've shot. Yeah. They come to you because you're going to help them tell a story, right? Like for to achieve whatever goal they're trying to do. It's not just about like shooting the footage and then throwing it into it. And often all these editors we're talking about, we're saying editing. It's not a lot of actual editing. It's a lot of using like AI pre-done templates.
And it's just selecting what
putting
part
some clips,
which part of the
so the only prerequisite for doing that really is having if you want to be good at it, is just to have a decent eye for like what a good shot looks like, and then being able to put them in the right order. That's about it. I think like telling a story with video is a totally different thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And arguably that's now almost the more important bit. I know one of the next questions is about challenges, and there's so much pretty much noise on social media now that at one point, like engaging your audience used to be a marketing term. We used to say that all the time, or we'll help you engage your audience. Now that is actually the problem that people have, is not being able to do that. Literally, 9 out of 10 videos will get scrolled past after a second, if we're specifically talking about social media. And if you think about, especially for us, for NHS trusts, to even create a video that is within any of that conversation on platforms like that, borderline impossible, and that's me saying that.
Yeah, but I think I'm even more pessimistic about like what social media has done to people's attention span and stuff, and I do feel like it's a totally. I alluded to it earlier, like in terms from a client's point of view, it's a completely different thing, like contracting someone to just make little social media videos versus to like create a bigger production that's doing something like training people or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think like outside of what a client does, just on a fundamental level, like the difference between like even the purpose behind why people create like short form, small social media content is totally different now to like long form video is almost a rarity now, and it's still like it doesn't even have to be long, but even like a 5-minute long video now is
more than 30 seconds. It's like, considered. We actually genuinely, so anything over 1 minute, anything over 60 seconds, we now consider as long form.
Yeah,
that's as in term. That's not industry term. I mean, as in just us as our agency, we would now consider that long form.
Yeah, and how much? I think I'm just going to clap so that I know where this is.
Yeah,
It's an important question as well. It's like, to be clear, how much of what you do is like minded towards social media versus minded towards other goals, like putting like delivering a training video for the NHS? I guess that doesn't really matter about social media at all. But like, how much of your split of your projects is?
So 2 points. So we've actually, when it comes to the long form and client stuff, NHS stuff, we've learned a lot from social media about how precise you need to be on a point, on the video itself, the message, the lesson, presenting it, giving an example if you need, or a tiny little explanation if you need, and straight on to the next thing. That's been kind of one positive, I would say, that we've taken from social media in pushing that across there and benefited the videos like as a result. In terms of the split, long form stuff we will do for clients. Very rarely, we still work with private businesses or private sector stuff and entrepreneurial type people. The best thing for them that is going to grow their business obviously is more so shorter form social media stuff. Because it's so difficult, we don't do a massive amount of that, and any time that we are focusing on that is to build our own brands, is our own stuff. So we benefit a lot from long form, and I think actually it's a whole nother conversation. I think things are starting to move back to long form. There's definitely a trend of long form, just sit down, talk to camera videos, an hour and a half video just doing tremendously well as long as it's valuable. But yeah, we the long form higher production stuff, dare I use the word, like a little bit more boring type content, obviously sits over here on the client side. And then where we absolutely hammer social media, like at a ridiculous volume, we'll probably do like 50 videos a week across the drum channel and the Affinity Racing channel for like YouTube shorts, live stream stuff, clips, highlights, whatever. That's where it just feels relentless, and you are just on a treadmill to almost churn out as much as you can. Hopefully you'll see a couple of patterns, see what works, stick with it. But yeah, in terms of the split, we barely do that for clients because we just know how difficult it is. And unless we're pretty much working for them full time, constantly churning out videos and ultimately then resulting in charging them a fortune, it's not really going to be worthwhile for them. I think
for some clients as well, it actually is. They're probably financially better off to just hire a little, like, say a little, I don't mean it in a reductive way, but I mean just hire like a one-man band, say little again. You know what I mean, like a one-man band content creator person who maybe service a few clients and just makes little like social media reels for them. Yeah. How many times can I say a little in one thing?
So I agree with you there, and genuinely most of my advice, if we're getting onto like private sector stuff or like trying to build and grow a business, it's why we don't do it, because it's genuinely not beneficial for the client to work with us most of the time. So try and give the example, and my mind always gets fried when I try and give the numbers. So most businesses will operate at the end of the year on a 10% net profit margin, right? I'll not go into it too much here, but 10% net profit. So if they turn 100 grand, easy numbers, they'll be left with 10. And if you think that most people's profit margins on a product they're lucky if they're getting 50%. So they sell something for 100 quid, they're only making 50. They've got to sell stuff in such a volume to have actually paid the person to have made that content, and then also the profit margin on top for the actual agency, that very rarely do the numbers stack up unless it's at such a huge scale. So for smaller businesses, like right on that bottom end, I always say you're best off either trying to do it yourself, or if you can't do that, actually employing someone, which is a big step for some smaller businesses, but it genuinely is the better step. Like it genuinely is.
Yeah.
So I end up turning away most work, which
turns
out not to be a good business model.
Stop watching the video. You don't want to work with David. Doesn't want you.
and not that as well, because I love working with small businesses, but just I found out very early on how difficult it is for those numbers to actually stack up.
Yeah.
Like genuinely.
Well, knowing you personally as well, you're too much of a canny lad for your own good as well. I bet you've ripped yourself off loads of times.
To be fair, I genuinely actually I had a client that we done a sort of big high production video for, and I talked him through like an entire sort of social media strategy, like. For context as well, the drum channel we built up to like 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's obviously still trying to grow and get there. Affinity Racing at 2,500. The other platforms not so much, but YouTube's like the main focus. And for this particular guy, YouTube was absolutely his. He could have absolutely smashed it. And he was like, "Well, how much do I need to pay you to do that a month?" I was like, "Mate, it's just not worth it." He was like, "No, how much? Give us the number." And I was like, and realistically, for a retainer package, that would have worked. Maybe 3 or 4 grand. And he was like, all right, okay. I was like, but mate, please don't. Like, actually just hire. So you're better off hiring 2 full-time people to do what you need to do. And then he didn't go ahead and do it, but he would have paid me to do it. And I talked myself out of best part of 50 grand a year worth of revenue. There you go. Funny.
Yeah, you need to not do that.
Yeah. Not good for business. Better for his business, but not good for mine. But there we go.
So, if you can, I would like you to walk me through a problem or a challenge that you've solved for a client from the point of view, sort of like a tangible of like how you did something and like the reason you did that thing, rather than just if I ask someone a question and I just go like, we applied technical solutions to solve this challenge. That's useless to me. I want to
read their website back to you.
Yeah, I want to hear how people actually make a difference in clients' lives, and like without, you don't have to spoil the secret sauce every time, but explain like how you did the do basically.
Okay, so one that comes to mind is again working with NHS for a local trust up here. They wanted to do a video series. They didn't know what that was going to look like, but a video series on spotting fake or false or misinformation around health. Incorrect health information. Trying to point out the reliable sources, one of which obviously is NHS, but how to spot if they were on a different website, something that might not look quite right or true, especially if it's on social media. They didn't know what that was going to look like. Their first suggestion maybe was actually just having a doctor like sit down, present a camera, which immediately to me screamed that it would be a little bit boring, or maybe it's not the most engaging way to get those points across. There's probably a perception amongst a lot of people that they wouldn't want to just feel like they're being just literally talked to or talked at as a kind of like, you guys are a bit stupid kind of thing. So we wanted to make sure that we kind of like avoided that message. Overall, anyways, we ended up suggesting that maybe an animation would be a better suit. We could then, first of all, save a huge amount of costs in video filming costs, because when they're talking about all sorts of different stuff, we'd have to go and film all sorts of those different things in different scenarios and things that they're talking about. The animation allowed us to be a little bit more creative in terms of what we actually put together, be more specific about their voiceover and the things that matched that and all of the visuals that went with it. And we think, or we kind of know because it's started to go out there now, that video series is a lot more effective in that way. Knowing as well that the video was going to be on social media for one, it was obviously going to go onto websites and be hosted in YouTube and all the normal places. but as well in waiting rooms and all the rest of it. So we needed a video that was really gonna could legitimately be copied and pasted across all of those platforms, and that animation setup really helped with that. So we walked them through kind of the script, the start to finish, asking the questions: who is it that you're actually trying to talk to? What message are you actually trying to get across? Looking at as well, without this message that people are receiving now, where are they before, where are they after? I.e., the problem was they legitimately had people, as everyone does, they've Googled a health condition, gone to a GP and gone, I think it's this, or instances where obviously people have stopped maybe taking medication because they've seen, oh, well, there's these side effects that I've not experienced, but the internet says that I could do. Starting to come into a lot of those problems. So it was give those examples of these are the negative things without this information. Now that you have this information, this is where we're at. Don't know if that explained or answered much or any of your question, but that was
No, yeah, it did, and I think
that's my story.
I think maybe like a thing that you touched on there, but I want to just make clear, like, because I guess that's my job in this, is to try and pull certain bits of it out. If a message is not like, like earlier we talked about, maybe you're training a team, or doing a tour of a ward or something, and that has a very tangible, I'm telling a story about this place or this thing. But if it's a campaign against misinformation, that's a lot more intangible, isn't it? Really, like obviously there's tiny elements, like you could maybe film someone going on the computer and searching something about it, but it's more like of a conceptual idea, and I think like maybe what you're getting at there is that animation allows you to be a lot more flexible about how you address that idea. It's like you're not tied to how you're going to shoot like so much like intangible stuff around misinformation. It's kind of always going to be a bit,
without going to the extent of every single overlay that animation had. Recreating or doing something like that in the real world is just an astronomical logistical headache, and with that an astronomical cost as well. So the animation ended up costing as well, public money and all that. Probably a fifth of what a normal video would have looked like, and I think still way more effective. Because do you really start getting in that particular instance? Do you really start getting actors and actresses to turn up for a GP appointment in a hospital and pretending to be ill, or say that they've seen this online, and just all of the shots and all of the headaches that come with that? The animation was so much easier.
Yeah, no, I get you. I suppose even just in terms of like you also don't have to pay for the costs of like. I know you probably don't have to do this with the NHS, but I know that you've done like music videos in the past. Whenever you do an animation, you're not gonna have to like pay actors and stuff. You're not gonna have to hire sets or like even just traveling, like
which we do loads of that, and we've done loads of videos for NHS as well. That includes all that and music videos and stuff, and they are an absolute nightmare. Like there's more front end goes into it of actually planning it all in the storyboarding and everything that we're chatting about. Than does the actual video and the edit, and ultimately for a video like that, just would not have been anywhere near as good a video. So, anyways, we saved the NHS a bit of money and made them a hopefully more exciting video. It is the top and bottom of that.
I think that reveals, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, but I feel like that answer reveals something that I feel like is quite true of you and the service you offer, and obviously that kind of is what this podcast is supposed to be about. It's kind of showing that what you do really, it's not as much attached to output, because animation is different to the video side of things. It's more that you're like it's like a consultative approach that you take to people. You're consulting them on how they've got a story they want to tell, and you consult them and give them the most viable way to tell that story, whether it's an animation or a video. People can't really make that decision themselves. I think if they become attached to like what something should be, they're already kind of going wrong. You know what I mean? If I've got an idea that I need to tell, like convey a certain message, but then I also start to prescribe like, oh well, I'm going to need to have it as a video that's going to have this thing in it and this thing in it. I'm kind of going wrong straight away there. I need to speak to someone like you who knows what they're doing, and I can trust to understand the story, but then you bring your expertise to how you're going to tell it.
Yeah. To be fair, the key word that you said there was viable as well, because you've mentioned about the music videos, you know, kind of like bands and musicians might have like all these grand ideas of what a really good music video might look like, but more often than not, they're not going to have the budgets. Similar can happen with NHS and private sector business stuff as well. So we'll always try and go with them like, this is what you've asked for, just for reference. This is probably what something like that would cost. That's never normally my suggestion. My suggestion would then be, but this is something where you can get like pretty close. It's not the Hollywood film that you've had in your, you know, they send you examples and they send you actual Hollywood like cinema. You know, I like this shot. You're like, yeah, okay. But yeah, give them an actual viable thing that is, you know, logistically as well as commercially actually possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good answer.
I don't think it was, but
no, it was. It definitely was. Okay, so for the final question that I've got to ask you, I guess it's looking to the future. What are some sort of like problems or challenges that you anticipate either for your business or for your users that are going to, you know, like videography customers coming in the next few years? Obviously, a lot of these chats that I've had with people, they were like, no one can get away from AI as a threat, and it does. I guess it does apply to videography too. You know, you see like very recently Google Veo 3 came out and
unbelievable,
got a bit scary. How do you think like being a videographer fits into that? I think I can preface this, I think, by almost answering it for you, because we did just talk about being like consultative and you know, like helping people in that way, and I think that's something AI can never do. However, I'm going to hand it over back to you to talk about what you want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably before AI, one of the big challenge for us right now is, mentioned before, about just the sheer volume of content that's just out there. Doesn't matter so much for our like client service side of things, but for us trying to build our own brands and channels, just standing out in a world full of noise is one of the hardest things. When it then comes to AI, that also then contributes to that, because you've just got this like bottom 10, 20, probably even now 30, maybe 40% of YouTube, which is just AI, like just sludge, just, you know, the easiest prompts, the easiest video overlay, or the easiest voiceover, pre-done, 11 Labs, ChatGPT, everything, and then just put straight onto YouTube. And ironically or annoyingly, sometimes doing quite well. So you're then up competing against that. So I think anything information-wise, which we maybe do a little bit of across our channels, if it's information content, I think they're the kind of pillars of content or spaces that's going to struggle the most, because then it's just very easy to just get that information straight online. ChatGPT, Veo, all these things in video, all of them, it's done like immediately. So that's one problem. The actual video production side, our biggest in terms of AI, our biggest challenge is staying on the right side of AI, but like for us staying on the positive side. So it will absolutely disrupt, I'm sure, in a few years' time. It's nowhere near there yet to replace somebody presenting in front of a camera. That'll probably be the last thing to go. But in terms of editing, it can do so much now. It can, you know, cuts out all the gaps, all the ums and ers, any filler words. It can pretty much edit, maybe say the skeleton of your video, the first 50% of your video. It can very easily, still with the likes of CapCut and stuff, provide any kind of overlays, and whether that's still with a prompt or just its best guess. Really, really impressive. So we still need to be on the right side of that, where we maybe start to use that for storyboarding and like ideation for clients. We had one when I talked about that safe sleeping video. We will have spoke to the client about an idea, and I will have maybe said we'll have a shot of, you know, the bed or the cot in the corner of that room. The picture that we will both still have in our head will be completely different. We could be stood looking at the cot, stood looking at the corner of the room. The picture in our head will still be totally different. And so using AI to our advantage there to actually get rid of maybe the first 10, 20% of a production in terms of storyboarding. That's what we want to try and do. We have started to have clients that are asking us, can this not just be made with AI? Which is, when the client's asking you that, you're kind of like, Yeah, it can, but it'll be a bit crap, and like, and here's why. And I think as well, also just generally in video, the challenge sometimes that we have is, we've just been talking about before, someone rings you up, or the garage rings you up when your car's failed its MOT, they tell you what's wrong with it, and you go, all right, okay, yeah. Most of the time you don't know what it is that they've just said. And you just have to, you take their word. I feel sometimes like that's our problem as a video agency, and probably in most creative spaces as well. You will explain something to a client, or maybe it's like high production stuff, this is what we're going to do, or this is why your idea won't work. That's maybe one of the main things. Kind of like confronting an idea and going, actually, this is the way that is. I still have this element inside, like just feeling where I think the clients maybe sat on the other side going, well, I've just got to take your word for that. Do you know what I mean? So we've had a lot of them asking about AI, and at the moment I'm then having to have that conversation where I go, genuinely, I'm not lying, it's not quite there yet. It will be, but we are the better option as things stand. That might change like next week or tomorrow, but like as things stand. So AI is a big one, but the challenge is staying on the right side of it and using it for all its good. Yeah. And I was really positive about AI until I delved into it a bit more, and a few more podcasts, and I think like economically and everything else that'll come with it could be a bit disastrous, but yeah, I'm not a big... My job's safe for at least the next few weeks.
I'm not a big fan. I think that videography, like even just shooting on location and stuff, like that's something AI is like never going to be feasible to replicate, even if it gets like, you know, VO3, you can make things that look real. Yeah. But just the like, to sit and produce a series of prompts to try and make it look like your specific hospital ward walkthrough is going to be a challenge, maybe, like, and then especially if you're a company that has, you know, you want one video in one ward, one video in another, you're going to still need someone to turn up with a camera and shoot it. You might be able to cut some corners or like, but yeah,
it'll probably get to the point where then actually that is still just the easier option, because you'll need to, in the same way now you can create AI avatars, and I've looked into this for kind of making YouTube channels a little bit more efficient. They're good, but they're not quite there. You've still got to take a full video of you to camera and some photos, kind of like 360 sort of thing. You would still have to do that on a ward. You would still have to turn up with a camera, whether it was a 360 camera and it kind of like, got all of the information it needed, and then with AI you can do the walkthroughs and stuff. You're still going to need probably someone to turn up, probably just forever and always. That'll probably be the easiest thing. So at least I know ward tours and hospital tours is maybe, it's like, if all else fails, we can definitely still do that. But I do think there is then that then is what makes you stand out, is then actually having that personable, especially if you are good on camera. That will then be your standout point, which is pretty sad. The person that stands out is the person that just actually sat in front of the camera and spoke, rather than an AI avatar version of themselves. Who knows? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that we get to that point. I'd probably just have to say I don't really care. And make sure I stick with that opinion before it stresses me out too much.
It feels stressful when you think about all the different things that it's doing and replacing, but I think there's always going to be, just like I always say this around like what I do and stuff, I think there's always going to be some, like, a need for that, like, consultative person who is taking what a client needs and translating that into like an output. Like maybe they I don't believe in doing this, but maybe they use AI to help produce that output. But it's not as easy as just, especially I think, like, for the reasons I just explained for video, I don't think you could just say like, generate me a video of my thing, like, and do this and this. It's like, that's not, I don't think that's a viable way to do it.
I think on that now, because all of a sudden now there's all these AI experts in the same way. 5 years ago they were probably the same people that were crypto experts and all the rest of it, and NFT experts. But the when it comes to AI, you'll know the prompt is like the most important thing, and giving it as much information as you can is the most important thing. And that is exactly the same as us for a video. Someone coming to us and going, I need a video. It's like, right, okay, we'll know which questions we want to ask. We'll know which way, based off of that we kind of like steer the video. does AI at any point have the ability to do that and have the like forward notion to ask those questions, or is it literally there to just take instruction, or will it always just be there to take instruction as it is now? The VO stuff and the Google, I'm well aware that they all exist. I find it absolutely amazing. I actually can't wait until we can use that loads, but I've made sure I've not delved right into it before it like just takes over my life, as in me spending all the time on it. There's a platform called Replit, I don't know if you've heard of it, and it's an AI app development. So you put your prompts in there and it will translate that to a software developer and kind of go, right, this is all the code that you'll need. Amazing to see it actually do it all in real time. But it will just do the most direct kind of route, if you like. And I was talking to a software developer about it, because we're looking at doing an app, which is another distraction, which is why I ended up on that platform. And I was like, the only way that I can explain it is the foundations of the code, and I know nothing about coding, but the foundations of the code from this app, from the AI, feels like it's just built on matchsticks. I was like, that's the only way that I can describe it. It feels like you're one button away from like breaking the entire thing. And the software developer was like, yeah, that's probably how I'd describe it as well. So when AI is being there to just like get from A to B in terms of task not done to task done as quickly and efficiently as possible, because that's sort of its whole basis for existing. I think you're always going to come into that, and that's where those ideas and those questions and AI is never going to turn around to you and say, what do you actually want from this? Like what we actually trying to achieve here? It's never going to ask that question, I don't think. And yeah, like you say, that's hopefully the difference.
No, that's a good answer. It's a strange future we're steering towards, but like you say, I think it could just be. It's not going to go away, but I do think that it's going to have a place. So we'll see where it goes.
It'll make its place. That's the thing. It's probably unfortunately not for us to decide, is it? It's
no.
We'll see where it ends up and see what's left for us to do after, and then we'll just do that, whatever that is. But yeah, we're really trying to see and stick with the positives, and I genuinely can't wait until we're using it like loads. We probably are already using it in a lot of production to maybe fix a couple of those mistakes, or maybe you didn't quite get a line in a voiceover, or client said, oh, we didn't write that line in, can you maybe get that? 11 Labs, for example, is amazing for that. Creates the voice, creates the avatar profile of that voice, and then spits out the line. It hasn't quite managed Geordie accents yet, but it's kind of getting there. When someone broad Geordie goes to sound an American but has the same voice, there's something really weird about it. But yeah, it's just trying to stay on the positive side and use it for streamlining production, saving clients and ourselves money, and hopefully a better result in the end.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's all. They're all the questions I was going to ask you. Thanks a lot for sitting and chatting with us. Just before you go, do you want to tell everyone how they could find you or follow you for the business and anything else you want to plug?
Absolutely, yeah. So Affinity Media is our, as I say, actual agency. So if you need any help with anything video production, social media management, and content, then you can follow us there. I've got a little bit of a business channel which we've only just set up, kind of behind the scenes documenting all of the other channels that we're trying to build. Yeah. So I've started another channel as well, David Winter Business, which is kind of all the behind the scenes of running the agency, what we're trying to do strategy wise to grow our other channels, Affinity Racing and my David Winter drum channel. And that's pretty much all there is.
Well, I'll put links to all of David's various sites.
Yeah, all of David's distractions.
I'll just fill up the description with all the links to all the many businesses you run. Yeah. And as always, you know where to find me. It's craig@contentbagofc.co.uk if you want to email me, or just www.contentbagofc.co.uk. And thanks for watching. Cheers.